As I was walking in the park today, I came across this beautiful white goose, which reminded me of the legend of the Swan Maiden, a mythical princess which shapeshifts from human form to swan form. There are several versions of this folktale around Europe, which carry a deep symbolic significance, and also got me thinking about Valkyries from Norse mythology, which are female figures that are often connected to swans and can fly, mentioned in Icelandic sagas, which were mostly written or compiled in the 13th century. While I've already spoken about pre-Columbian Viking expeditions to North America in previous videos, which I'll leave a link to in the description, in today's episode, I thought we would examine some lesser known Viking voyages, this time to South America. Academic historians generally do not admit to the presence of European visitors to South America until after the arrival of Christopher Columbus. That said, the most striking evidence for the Danish Viking presence in South America before the time of Columbus is the case of the Inca dogs. It's the custom of pre-conquest Incas to be mummified with their dogs. A study of the graves near Lima in 1885 distinguished a variety of herding dogs whose DNA samples taken later from 42 canine mummies did not match the dogs currently inhabiting the region. The analysis by French scientists determined that the mummified breed could not possibly be a descendant of the wild dogs of South America, and instead matched it to dogs which numerous skeletal remains have been discovered all on the Danish islands of Als in the Baltic Sea. The French scientists were in no doubt that the mummified pre-conquest Inca dogs must be descendants of the Danish sheepdog. The difficulty presented was accounting for how these Danish dogs got to South America before the Spanish conquest. There were two theories for this. The first, presented by scientists, said that, quote, the Danish Vikings must have been given some of their Bunzo sheepdogs to Norwegian Vikings. These Norwegian Vikings must have taken the dogs with them to North American colony at Vineland. When the Norwegians on Vineland were ejected by the natives, they must have left the dogs behind. The native Indians must have not wanted the dogs, but instead of killing them, crossed the water from Vineland to modern Canada, where they must have given the dogs to other tribes. These other tribes must also not have wanted to keep the dogs, and so passed them to yet more tribes to the south, the process being repeated down through the thousands of miles from the present United States, and onwards to Mexico, and then to tribe after tribe through Guatemala to Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, then Panama, from where they were conveyed by balsa raft to Venezuela, then along the coastal strips of Colombia and Ecuador, and up into the mountain heights of Peru, where the Inca adopted the entire strain. No evidence is offered to support this unlikely theory. This nonsensical explanation was the only scientific theory available, that is, that would fit in with the accepted history of the finding of the Americas. But if that account were wrong, a more common sense explanation might be that the Danish Vikings brought the dogs with them when they sailed to South America from Europe in the 11th century, and it is this idea which we will explore a bit further. In the 11th century, the Danish King Knut II had 1,700 ships for the western expansion. For the greater distances involved, a special type of woolen sail, which had been developed for greater speed and sailing, was used. They allegedly came ashore at Santos, Brazil, found a path which had long been previously prepared, and made their way on foot to the modern town of Pedro Juan Caballero in Paraguay, near the mountain Itaguambape, which means fortress. Long before the supposed arrival of the Vikings, it had been hollowed out to make a fortress, hence its name. The total of engraved runic inscriptions in Paraguay runs in the thousands and exceeds that of all of Scandinavia. 71 have been translated from the South American Futhorc dialect. One 5-letter runic inscription was found inside the mountain fortress, but has defied translation. Not many people have heard of this possibility because the archaeological research supporting it was conducted around the time of the Second World War and involved the German nationalists. And so, like most things that involves nationalist Germany, it was covered up and lied about in both politically motivated academia and by the banker-controlled media. French archaeologist Jacques de Meilloux served in the Second World War as an officer with the 33rd Waffen SS Grenadier Division Charlemagne. After emigrating to Argentina post-war, he wrote several books on his research into the Viking presence along the coasts of Latin and South America. The most important of these books for physical evidence of the Viking presence is called El Rey del Paraguay. It would appear that the purpose of the presence of Danish Vikings in Paraguay between the years 1000 and 1250 was to guard an installation of great importance. In May 1940, Fritz Berger, an engineer with contacts in Munich, but working for the Army of Paraguay, was involved in an archaeological project involving a small mount about 130 feet in elevation known as Iviti Pero, which means Bald Mountain, located about 15 miles southeast of the modern border town of Pedro Juan Caballero. Early in 1942, when they had excavated a shaft 75 feet down inside the mountain, they came upon an object impossible to penetrate by drilling or explosives, apparently the roof of an enormous subterranean chamber. Work was suspended while awaiting advanced drilling equipment and more powerful explosives to be sent from Germany. In November of 1942, U.S. agents reported the arrival of a German U-boat at the Argentine naval base, which allegedly contained a pneumatic drill and explosives, after which excavation work continued immediately at Iviti Pero and continued into 1944, when, according to French archaeologist Jacques de Meilloux, the drillers were finally defeated by, quote, a definitely artificial material harder than reinforced concrete and unknown to science. Soundings within the mountain provided the dimensions of a suspected burial chambers of 666 feet by 260 feet of hollow structure with perhaps 800 rooms. De Meilloux considered it to be the burial chamber of the great white king Ipir, after whom Iviti, Peru is now named, and other royalty from Tiwanaku, the ancient Bolivian town on the shores of Lake Titicaca, believed to have been in existence for more than 14,000 years. Iviti, Peru, or Bald Mountain, seems to be what the Danish Vikings were protecting for perhaps 3 centuries. The initial interest of the Danish Vikings in South America was not Paraguay, but Bolivia. From a fortified hill near the Brazilian border, they occupied a defensive position for some part of 2 centuries, keeping watch on a nearby small mountain. Beneath the mountain, under observation, was not only a large area whose walls and roof were built of concrete unknown to science that could not be opened, but is also believed to conceal a network of deep subterranean tunnels. Strangely, for Europeans so far from home in the 11th century, they seemed to know exactly where they were heading and how to get there cross-country. There's substantial archaeological evidence that Vikings of Danish origin were present in Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay before Columbus, and that they arrived by sea from Europe. While much of this evidence is segregated by the post-World War II scientific community because of Professor de Meilloux's having been a member of the Waffen SS, it is also ignored or concealed because of the ancient myths which support the physical evidence, such as the legend of the White King of Amambay. Quote, In those days there reigned in this region a powerful and wise king called Ipir. He was white and wore a long blonde beard. With men of his race and Indian warriors loyal to him, he lived in a community situated on the crest of a mountain. He possessed fearsome weapons and had immense riches in gold and silver. One day, however, he was attacked by savage tribes and disappeared forever. That is what my father told me, who had heard it from his father. King Ipir was never identified and his followers disappeared, and there's no suggestions that they were massacred. So speculation continues as to what happened to them, with some locals saying they escaped to somewhere below the ground. Letters sent to Munich mention tunnels discovered in the area, 130 kilometers long, which is about 81 miles, as well as drawn up plans of the subterranean installations and sketches of 4 tunnels, including careful measurements, but insufficient information to identify the locations of the various entrances. This area is inaccessible today as a military area. So, in conclusion, combining legend, archaeological, and possibly runic evidence, and nationalist socialist involvement, this theory suggests that long before the 11th century, a rich and powerful white-skinned and blonde-haired king, Ipir, and his followers, unknown to the world's historians, inhabited the crest of the mountain fortress, and when attacked by an overwhelming force of natives, Ipir and his court retired to safety below Bald Mountain. Perhaps the Vikings were sent to Amun Bay later to protect and oversee the installation of the impenetrable concrete roof and sides over the portal below Bald Mountain. What is interesting about this story is that all the main actors are hiding something. All academic historians and scientists, some knowingly, adhere to the apparent lie that no European reached Southern America before Columbus in 1942. Therefore, no Vikings could have been there. I find this absurd, as in my own anthropological research, I've found that the sites in South America predate, that is to say, are older than archaeological sites in North America, which goes directly against the proposed theory for how the New World was populated by people crossing the Bering Bridge near Alaska. That said, the Third Reich was in the middle of a major war, which it was already in danger of losing. Its outcome depended on the Battle of the Atlantic, yet they somehow managed to spare a U-boat to detour to Argentina with a pneumatic drill for an archaeological dig in Paraguay. This sounds unreasonable that in 1942 Germany would do such a thing in the name of archaeology or to simply learn about King Ipir. So it stands to reason that in light of the German involvement with Antarctica, which I've discussed many times in my videos concerning Operation High Jump and German subterranean bases and their quest to reach Agartha, a legendary inhabited world below the surface of the earth, that the Germans wanted to know where the tunnel beneath Bald Mountain led. Was the mountain one of the portals into the Vril world, the inner earth? There's much more to this story, which is only getting started, and I promise I will tie it all together soon in a follow-up video. My name is Robert Sepehr. I'm an anthropologist. My published work is available on Amazon. My books make a great gift. If you'd like to support my work, you can do that through patreon.com. There should be a link in the description section for those who are interested. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Please hit the like button and subscribe for future updates. As always, I look forward to reading your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. Please have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see you again soon.